Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're at. Thanks for tuning in to codeLive. My name's Kevin Poorman. I am a developer evangelist here at Salesforce. Today we're going to be working on some Apex recipes. Specifically, we're going to be talking about approval processes and how to manipulate them, submit them, etc. in Apex. And so I was thinking about how do we structure this today? And it occurred to me we should probably start off by creating an approval process. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch over to my Scratch org where I've set this up, and I've searched for approval processes over here. If it'll let me type, come on. Approval processes. I'm going to click this. Now, when I load this first page, the thing it allows me to do is to choose the object that we're going to be working with. So just for grins and giggles, we could do the classic opportunities, this opportunity deal approved. But I was thinking it might be more interesting if we did case. So let's choose case. And we're going to create a new approval process. And we're going to use the jumpstart wizard. Why not? While this loads here, if you've got questions, comments, or remarks, please feel free to hit me up in the stream chat, or you can hit me up on the Twitters at @CodeFryer. Look forward to talking with you and interacting with all of you today. So today, like I said, we're going to be working on the approval processes. We're going to call this one Demo Approval Process, because naming things creatively is hard. And I'm going to leave the approval assignment email template blank if it'll let me. I'm not sure that it will. We're going to specify no entry criteria for this. Actually, let's name this Demo No Entry Criteria. We all know it's an approval process, so we don't need to put that part in there. And we'll click that, repopulate it. This one has no entry criteria, and we're going to hit save. I know, I won't be able to use it until it's been activated. Thank you. I need to automatically assign to a queue. I'm going to choose let the assigner choose the approver manually instead. Yes. Okay. Loading. Okay. So we've just entered this jumpstart wizard, and I'm going to go into the details here. And if you're not familiar with approval processes, how they work is pretty straightforward. They've got some entry criteria, and if these things are true, then it can go into the approval process, and then the approval process itself has steps. Each of these steps does some sort of functionality for you, and then you have final approver actions, final rejection actions, and recall actions. And these are actions that are taken whenever someone says, okay, this is finally approved, or no, I can't approve this. And sometimes with approval process, you have multiple approvers. So the final approver action is what happens when enough approvals are accepted or come in. Final rejection is the same way. If enough rejections come in, then we reject the approval process overall. And the recall actions, these are actually kind of cool. A recall action works like this. When you have somebody who's clicked on, submit this for approval, you can say, oh, I didn't want to do that. No, stop. Let me recall that approval process, and it will undo the submission. And so when we do that undo submission bit of work, we can also have it do specific actions for us. And the actions that come in that recall action and the initial submission actions are mirrors of each other. So the very first thing you see here is when we go into the initial submission, we're going to lock the record. Why do we lock the record? We don't want anybody else messing with it because we want to be able to see the data as it's requested approval before somebody can go in there and change it. So if we're going to lock the record from being edited on the initial submission action, the mirror of that is on the recall action, we're going to unlock it. On rejection, we're going to unlock it. But we're going to leave it locked if we do approve it. Why? Because we don't want anything modified. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go into the approval steps, and we're going to choose the show actions. I'm going to do a new approval step. And I'm going to say demo step. Let me capitalize things correctly here today. Okay, and we're going to say this is step number 2. This is just a demo. All right, and we'll hit next. Okay, all records should enter this step. True. And then we want this to select assigned approver. Yep, that assigned, and we're going to manually choose it. And we're going to perform the rejection actions for this one. So we say yes. And I want to create a new approval action for this step. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a field update. And hit next. I'm going to call this one the field update. I'm going to say demo field update. Update a field. This is all very boilerplate. And we'll get to the exciting stuff once we've got the approval process created. So now we can go in here and we're going to do case escalated. And we're going to say checkbox is true and hit save. Now, these approval steps have to be done in order, and each one can be assigned, approved, or rejected. So if you think about your approval process, you might say, all right, I want to approve this thing for this user, and your boss may sign off and say, okay, yes, I want to do that. And we can offer them that rebate or that special offer. And then the next step would be to say, well, what does sales think? And maybe sales wants to come back and say, well, don't offer them this, offer them that. And so there's another level to that approver. And so what we've done is we've created this 2-step approval process where the first time somebody has to assign an approver, it gets approved, then it kicks it off into our second one, and that one also has to be approved. And that may not be terribly exciting, but for the purposes of being able to manipulate these in Apex, we just want a 2-stage approval process there. All right, so let's look at what we are. Let's look at how we do this now that we've got this saved. Let's look at some Apex code. Now, as you might imagine, I've created Apex recipes, and in here I've created an approvals recipes folder, and I have the approval recipes class. There's a few things that I want to try to accomplish here today with approvals, and they are basically submit and conditionally approve something. So that is both submitting an approval, determining whether or not it should be approved, and approving it or not approving it. And then we also want to be able to say submit on behalf of a specific user. So we want to be able to trigger some automation, maybe from a trigger or something. We want to have some code that will say, okay, I want to act as Bob and submit this for approval as if I were Bob automatically. And then the third one that we want to be able to do is be able to submit something and skip the entry criteria when there is entry criteria. So remember that we've created an approval process called demo approval process, and it has no entry criteria. So that's not going to be what we need for this this third one. But let's talk about how we do this for the first one. So let's do a public static void. For right now, we might change that later. Set and conditionally approve. And we're going to need to pass in an object. So we're going to do sObject. Yeah, well, that's not true. We could get away with an ID. We'll do object ID. And then we'll, forgive me, my allergies are bothering me today. We'll be able to go here and use that object ID to set it. So one of the things that we have to do here, he says as he brings up his notes, is the first thing we have to do is create an approval process request. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very simply create an approval process. Approval is it? No, it's just process request. Did I spell that right? That looks funny. Approval process submit request. All right. Now, just for grins and giggles, I'm going to save this to make sure, because approval looks funny to me. APP, oh, and that's why, because there's no R. There we go. I reckon about half of all bugs in the world are typos, and the other half are race conditions. And the third half is off by 1 errors. It cracked me up. And that's actually not going to work. That's if I was writing Swift, but I'm not writing Swift. So I'm going to do this as request is equal to approval. Spell it right the first time there. Process submit request, like that. Okay, so that should give us a request, and now we can manipulate it. One of the very first things we're going to have to do when we manipulate this is to set the request. Where'd my cursor go? Wait. Failed to submit. Method does not exist, or process submit request. Yep. It's because I've been writing too much Swift today. Let's try that. And then we're going to set request dot set object ID. Now the set object ID, this is the crucial thing. This is what ties this process request to a particular object. So remember, we created this process, this approval process on case. So I'm going to pass it into object ID, which means we have to pass this into our code here. So we'll need to pass in an case ID. Case ID, not case number, just to be clear. All right, so once we've done that, we've got our object, we've got our request, we're going to set the object ID. Now we can set some comments. So request.set comments. And this is where you can put in things like this was automatically submitted and conditionally approved by Apex code. Let's capitalize Apex. That seems legit. Okay, so we've got that. We've got our set comments. We've set our object ID. Now we can set the submitting user. So we can do that in one of two ways. We can say request.set. Let's see, is it set user? Submitter ID. Submitter ID. Okay, submitter ID, and we're going to have to do user ID, which means that we can pass this in here. We'll do ID, user ID, and we could. That's fine, passing in there. But we haven't really abstracted anything if we keep having to pass these variables in. So let's do this. Let's automatically assume that the user running it is going to get it. Let's take that back out. And I'm going to change this, by the way, to be inherited sharing. Inherited sharing. Okay, and instead of the user ID here, I'm going to do user.get user info .get user ID. All right. So whoever triggers off this Apex is going to be the one submitting it. So we're not going to pass in or look for a particular user here. And then what we can do, or the next thing we have to do, is I look through my notes here because I don't often do a lot with approval processes. But let's do this. Our next thing is what we're going to have to do is set our request and we're going to set the set process definition name. Set process definition name. And this is where we can pass in or specify which of our approval processes we want to use. So I'm going to give it a name. Is it good? So we got a question here from SF Nerdy here. He says, is it good to send parameters in wrapper class? That's a great question. The question is, should you specify your parameters here as an object of a wrapper class? And in general, I don't do so if I've only got 1 or 2 parameters. My threshold is 4 parameters. So if I've got more than 4 parameters, I generally create an object, pass that in instead, so that it's listed down to one particular one particular object that I can investigate. But that's a great question. If we wanted to do that, what that would look like would be doing something like public class. Let's give this one the name approval input, which isn't great, but and then we can do public set public, and then we'll do ID object ID, and then I do get set properties like that. We'll do public ID user ID, and we can set this up. Trying to think about how we can make that dynamic so that if we've got we can, if they pass one in, they get the user ID. If they don't, then they get a response. But I don't think I can right now, so I'm going to pass it in there. And then we can do public string process name get set. And then we could turn this around and just say, instead of object ID here, we can pass in approval input. I'm going to capitalize that because it is a class. So approval input, and then here we can just do input. And then instead of object ID, we would do input.object ID, like that. We'll leave that there. That's a fun little refactor. And then for this one, instead of user info dot get user ID, we would end up doing input dot user ID. And for the same thing here, we can say input dot process name. So we've set the process, we've added a comment, we've set the submitter, we've set the object ID, and now what we need to do is figure this one out or set this one up to actually process. Now we can do this in a couple of ways, but there's one more thing I forgot we need to do, and this would be request dot skip entry criteria, and I'm going to say is equal to false. I think it might it's a method, false. So in this case, I don't want to skip the entry criteria. Now, it doesn't matter that there's no actual entry criteria on this. I just don't want to skip it right now for this example. And then I'm going to actually trigger the response. So in order to do that, we get an approval process result object, and we're going to mark this as results is equal to approval dot process. It's actually request, I think. Request dot process. It's not process. It's a static method. Approval dot process, and we're going to process request. Request, like that. And so by doing so, we've taken our object, we've created this request of the approval process, and now we're telling it to actually go trigger that process, which is the exciting, like this is where the work actually happens here. And then we can actually look at and see what comes back of that process object. So for the grins and giggles, and just to get us to a point where we're seeing something run, let's go ahead and do a system debug. I'm going to give us a nice little flag, search for results, like that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save this, let it process all of my typos, and we'll fix those. While it does that, I'm going to get a sip of water here. Failed to run. Okay. Method does not exist or incorrect signature, void skip entry criteria. That's because it's not skip entry criteria, it's set skip entry criteria. Like that. Jolly good. Save that again. maybe. Okay, there we go. That's saved. And why do we get a squiggly on this one? Void process. Yes, it does. That's silly. Silly computer. Okay, so we've got this set up here. Now, if we wanted to just sort of test this, let's build a test class. So I'm going to put my test over here on the right, and let's do this. It's going to be @is_test. This is going to be private class. Okay, and we'll do @is_test. We'll do static void test submit and conditionally approve. Okay, and in order to do this, we're going to need that input object. So let's create a, actually, let's just think through this. We're going to need a case. We're going to need a approval input object, and then we're going to need to call it. Okay, so first things first, case, and we'll do case, and then we're just going to cast it to case because we're going to use test factory dot create s object and do this one. We're going to create s object. It's going to be new case like that, and do insert is going to be true. That do insert is going to drop it in the database for us. We don't have to clutter our test to of DML there. All right, so we've got that. Let's create a, it's going to be approvals recipes dot approval input like that. Input equals new approvals recipes dot approval input like that, and we'll do input dot object ID is equal to case dot ID. Okay, and then we'll do input dot user ID is equal to user info dot get user ID like that, and we're going to do our input dot process name is equal to, and let's see what we called that over here because I don't want to typo that. Approval processes will go here, and approval entry criteria, do our unique name, the underscores, good. Okay, and now, just for grins and giggles, I'm going to do test.start test, and I'll do test, so I don't forget, no, not start again, stop test. Very good. All right, and now what I can do is I can call approvals recipes dot submit and conditionally, no, what are you doing? Submit and conditionally approve input like that, and we can stop the test. Now I'm not going to create any assertions here or anything like that because we don't actually, our test method, the method we're testing doesn't actually do anything other than submit it right now. So I'm going to save this, make sure this works. Let's get rid of our comments up there, don't need those. We'll go and put some proper comments in at the end. All right, and now I'm going to run this, just run this test. I'm going to clear out my console here, make this a little bit bigger. Now we can all wait for the test results, like we're waiting on Nevada. Come on, test results. All right, let's see. While that's going on, let's see if anybody else has other questions. Looking over here in the stream chat, not seeing other questions. So let's see what our test results say. We've got a failure. DML exception process failure, first exception on row, no applicable process. Huh. That's interesting. So when we do the process name, I'm going to look over here at my notes. That is the, oh, you know what? I betcha it's because it's not activated. So let's go ahead and activate that process. We'll try that again. Clear my work there. We'll run this test again. I'm betting that it failed because it wasn't activated, so it couldn't find an applicable process, but it was there. So we'll hopefully see this work now. No, we got a failure run. Required field missing. Next approver ID. So the next approver ID, because we've not set our code, or we've set our code to have it force us to choose who the approver is, we're going to have to set that approver in here. So let's do this. Request.set next approver IDs. And that's interesting. I'm going to go look at our documentation because I don't know if that's a set or a list. So let's find Apex approval set next approver IDs. Process request class documentation's lovely here. All right, get comments, get next approver IDs, set next approver IDs. And here we go. So we're going to set in a list of IDs. Okay. Must be a single entry list. Next step in your approval process is another Apex approval process. You must exactly send. Okay. So just for grins and giggles, let's see if we can't hard code this. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to do our user info trick again. And I'm going to do, it has to be a list of IDs. So I'm going to say new list ID, put that in there, like that. Now, obviously, you probably don't want to have yourself being the approver for something you submit, but for the sake of illustrating how all this is wired together, let's try this. All right, I'm going to clear that out, and we'll do another test run. Thinking about getting a new office chair. Does anybody have one that they particularly enjoy? Love to hear about it in the stream chat. Got a Yoder coder and a Heiko and a John M and a Katya and an SF Nerdy here joining us today. Good to see you all. Good to see you. Got a little bit lower turnout than we normally see, but it's okay. It's all good. Got some good questions going on about wrapper classes, and hey, that passed. Okay, so what we've done in this test so far is we've set this up so it's going to submit it, and now we want to actually like conditionally approve it. So how do we go about doing that? Well, this is the part where approval processes can get a little confusing. So what we need to do is we need to query for, after we've processed, we're going to get something called a work item. And to do that, we're going to get a list ID, and it's going to be the, let's call it work items. And we're going to pull that from results.get new work item IDs. All right, and this method is going to come back and tell us the Apex records of Apex record IDs of the things that we want to manipulate. So with that, now we got that. Now we can query for it, right? Because I think what we want to do is we want to update these. So let's look at creating a process work item request, which is, so we've got a process submit request. Now we need a process work item request. So there's a lot of objects here, and approval dot process work item request and we'll call this one work item. And we're going to say is new approval process work item request. Okay, and here we can leave some comments. So let's do work item set comments, and we'll say hello. Always good to be, you know, kind and welcome everyone. Hello. Then we'll do work item dot set action, and this is where so this is where you can do approve like that. You can do work item set work item dot set next approver IDs, and we'll say we'll just copy this here for right now so that I get to approve my own. We'll save that, and then we're going to set the work item ID. So work item dot set work item ID, and this is going to be the ID we got back earlier. So I'm going to say work items dot actually I'll just do indexed like that. So it's going to be the first one because it's going to be our IDs, right? These are our IDs. We want the first one there, and then now we can process this again. So approval dot process work item, and now, well, let's capture this. This is going to be our work item result. Apex approval dot process result work item results equals, and we'll do system debug, and we'll do work item results. Okay, so for those of you following along on home and on Trailhead Live here, what we've done, and this looks a little redundant and it can be confusing because you're using some of the same method for two different kinds of things. So we have this Apex approval process result here, where we're going to process a request, then that request is a process submit request. So that's how we submit it. We submit it, we process that request. When we get back, when we have a job or a approval process that's in motion, what we can do is we can get the work items, and these are the actions involved in that, and then say, okay, great, now I want to process that particular action. And that action is going to be pulled in with a process workflow, a work item request, and we're going to process that using the same method, the approval.process method, but it's going to be on a work item now instead of that submit request. So again, it can be a little confusing, the overload of the approval.process method. It's the same method, we're just using it with two different objects here. And when we get done with that, we should have the results. So, but what we talked about doing in this method is making this conditionally approve, right? And so part of what we can do is we can say we can say if input dot override, then we can say approve, else, and we'll do this here, and we'll say deny. My 5-year or 6-year-old was really excited yesterday when she heard me talk about an if statement, because I also mentioned else, and she heard Elsa, and she thought Elsa, Daddy uses Elsa at work, and that was very exciting for her, and I had to let her down gently about that. All right, so if input override, now we have to go up here to our approval input, give us an override thing here. So we'll say public boolean override equals false. Like that. Okay, so the outcome of a default run of this, unexpected token run, public boolean row. Why do you know like that? Oh, override is a keyword. All right. We'll do circuit breaker. Circuit breaker. And then we'll come down here and choose if the circuit breaker. Okay. Not real happy with that, but we're trying to illustrate how those works together. I don't want to waste all our time getting everything perfect here. We'll come back to this. We'll make it perfect here as we move along. So right now, if we don't do anything, this should end up denying the request, and we can verify that by coming down here and passing back or making this set back or send back the work item results method. And we could do that in a couple of ways. We could just make our method return approval dot process result, and so we could come back here and say return return work item results, and that would be good. Let's do that for right now. And so we'll set this over here. I'm going to make my test side a little bit bigger. And this is now going to return an approval dot process result. And we'll call this one results is equal to that. And now what we can do is we can write some assertions based on what our approval results is supposed to be. So we can do a system dot assert. Do this one. We'll say results dot is success, and is there an is failure? Dot is nope, just is success. So we have to negate this. Negate that. So if not is success, and we'll say expected input parameter wrapper to not have overridden the default default denial. Like that. Save that. Let's scoot things back over here. And if we run this test now, this should still work. Our test should still pass because we're expecting the result to be denied. And we know that it's going to be denied because we have not chosen to override input dot circuit breaker. But as it turns out, that says it failed. So let's go down here and see what's going on. TML exception process failed. First action on line 45. So let's go to 45. Didn't I just set the work action? Set comments. Aha. Set action. There we go. That would be why. Remember, this is codeLive, so failure is always an option, especially when I'm typing. We'll set this going, and now we'll run our test again. I guess we should rename our test to mean instead of conditionally approve, it should be conditionally deny. Uh-oh, another failure. Okay, let's see what this failure is. First exception, row 0, illegal transition type. That looks like we're supposed to look at the docs here. So process request method, I want to look at the approval namespace process work item request class, and I want to set action type of action taken, it's a string. Oh, valid options are approve, reject, or removed. I feel like that shouldn't be a string, that should be an enum. Okay, here. We'll make deny reject. Okay. But we can see we're on the right path because this is the path we wanted it to go for. Okay, we'll rerun that test. And I think this should work just fine. No. Okay, let's try it again. Cert failed. Expected the input parameter wrapper not to have overridden the default denial. Let's Boolean operators sometimes mess you up. System assert results that is success should be false. So the inverse of false is true. We're asserting that this has to equal true. Let's you know what, let's do this. Let's look at our logs. Turn on Apex debug logs. As soon as that gets done, we'll rerun our test. Maybe. Okay, rerun the test. Because we want to see what comes back from work item work results. And I think that should be what we expect it to be, but okay. Failed to run. Expected that. Now let's get Apex debug logs. We're going to grab this one. And I'm just going to make this super wide for the moment. I'm going to search for. Okay, we've got an approval process results. Get entity, get errors, get instance status rejected. Okay, that's what is success is true. What? No, that's right. So approval processes can do their work, process their work, and be successful even if the status is rejected. So what we need to do is change our assertion code to be a little bit more specific and precise. So we want this to be results is success and results dot instance get instance status. Can I do that? Can I just do instance status? No. Not is success. Instance status is equal to false. Or was it false or was it rejected? We'll do this. Reject. Try that. Saving. Okay. Now let's run this again. Approval processes are complex. And apparently, so is that sentence. Failed to run. Alright, let's see why. Scrolling on down all the way. Expected the input parameter. Okay, so we've got an assertion failure. Let's grab those logs again. There we go. It's rejected. Okay. It didn't throw a fit about me just saying instance status, which is nice. I wasn't aware that we could do that. I thought we had to use .get instance status, but that's nice that it's allowing us to access it like a property. A little friendly little quality of life issue there. I'm glad we took care of that. Testing, testing, testing. I'm gonna... Oh, look at that. Exit code 0. That's what we want to see. Our test has passed. Okay, so what we've done here in this method, I'm just going to clean it up a little bit, is we have created a method that will take a record, trigger its approval process by name, trigger the first work item, and either approve or deny it based on the input that comes in. And we can do this we can make this a little bit more real life. We could do something along the lines of taking our object ID that we get here, and we could grab a hold of the object itself. So we know this is going to be a case. So we can say case equals select, what is the field called? Approval processes. Let's go to Object Manager, and we'll do case. There we go. I believe there's a age of case. Case age. Let's do age. Nope. Okay. Let's look at... Well, we can do date time open, so we'll do created date. So select created date from case where ID equals input dot object, not circuit breaker, object ID. Okay, so we're going to get that created date. Now we can say if we can do if case dot created date. Actually, that would be now. Date dot now minus date dot created date is greater than or equal to, let's see, 60 seconds. We do do some quick math. So an hour in seconds, I could do that, or I could just be like 1 hour in seconds. Okay, 3600. Then what we're going to do is we're going to say input dot circuit breaker is equal to true. All right, so basically what we're saying is if now minus the case created date is greater than 3600, then we're going to invoke our circuit breaker and set it equal to true. And that should mean that our object will automatically get approved. Our approval process will approve this if the case is older than an hour. So that's an example of how you can make that contextual to your case. You can look at the fields on the object. You can make choices based on what you see and what you have. You can say, okay, like, you know, if your role in the role hierarchy as a user is above, you know, sales manager, then you're automatically approved to do discounts of 10%. That sort of work. And the basis of this is all in, you know, grabbing that input. In this case, we used a wrapper class, and looking at what we want from that data and deciding programmatically whether or not we want to approve. And because we're programmatically determining whether or not we approve, then as we go through and as we do the approval or the disapproval or the rejection, that happens automatically. So instead of, you can set up approval so that people actually have to go in there and say, yes, I want to approve this, but you can also set it up so that you've got some automated approvals. You can say, okay, I'm going to go and make this just automatically approve because it's 10% and the value of the deal is over $900 or whatever your logic is. And that's how we do that conditional approval here. And again, that's not a great use case, but we've got 10 minutes left here, and we only got 1/3 of the way through our projected bit here. So let's think about this as a real life use case on case. So we've got a case that comes in. We want to look at how old the case is, and then determine whether or not we can offer a credit. So let's do it that way. We're going to do Boolean offer credit equals false. Okay, and now we'll do case equals select ID subject. We may or may not need subject, and then we'll do created date from case where ID is input dot object ID, and we're going to say limit 1. Okay, doesn't like that single. Okay, so that's going to be our case, and now we're going to look at it and say, pardon me, if date.now, and actually we probably want datetime.now. How do we know? Because this says our date time to open is a date time field. So we want to compare apples to apples. Date time now minus case dot created date. Just realized I capitalized case, okay, with the case. Created date. Now I'm going to put some parentheses around here because I want that calculated first. Is greater than or equal to 3600, and date times are stored in milliseconds, so I need to multiply that by 1,000, and times 1,000. So just wrap that there, do our math. And then, okay, so if that's the case, then we're going to say offer credit equals true. So if our case is older than an hour, let's also do this. Let's grab, we have an escalation field, escalated, called is escalated. We'll grab that field. So if date time is there, is greater than 3600, and is escalated is true, we'll say case dot is escalated, offer the credit is equal to true. Great. So we've got this in our use case. We've got somebody who's like a frontline support worker. They've submitted a case. The end user is complaining. It's been escalated. It's been more than an hour. When they call back in, the user can say, or our user can say, yeah, go ahead and offer them a credit on their account, and I'm going to click that offer the credit one, and it's going to kick off an approval process. And that approval process will go through and then kick off. It'll start the approval process. And since our first step is to choose someone to have it to do it, we set that to the current user ID. And then we're going to go down here and say if they are set to do this, then we're going to approve it automatically. So we'll say, set the action to approve if the input is circuit breaker, or we've got offer credit. There we go. Okay. So let's see. I want or there. I think so. We could make it here. We'll do it this way. If offer credit, and then down here we'll say if test dot is running test and input dot circuit breaker. We'll just do work item, not work item results, work item set action to approve. All right, so we've automated that. Now nothing that we've changed over here should change the way our test runs, so we should be able to rerun our tests. And while we're saving this and running the tests here, I've got another question. Oh, wait a minute. Date time is use integer or double or decimal. Date time now. Case created date. While that saves here, SF Nerdy's got another question. It says, is it good to have constants class separately to capture the hard-coded strings? I think that's probably a matter of org preference, which is to say, your org may like to do it, my org may not like to do it. I don't know that there's a strong reason one way or the other to do it. I think that if you wanted to do it, you could probably easily or better able do it with the labels and translation workbench for hard-coded strings. But I've never really seen the need to have hard-coded strings as constants. No one's ever explained to me their reasoning for why they would want that. But that's okay. So it's not liking my date time.now minus case. So, with 4 minutes left, I'm going to do Salesforce or Apex. Calculate age of case. How to calculate? Let's see. Hours. Yeah, that's not quite what we're dealing with. Nope. It's a YouTube video. Yeah. Okay. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to call it quits here for the day. I'm going to have to figure out what my error is there and clean this up a bit. But I think we've accomplished a lot on demonstrating how we use approval processes, both in creating them in the UI and in triggering them and manipulating them inside of Salesforce, inside of Apex. So I want to thank you all for tuning in, and I hope to see you again next week. Next week, I think we've got a guest. I don't have that window open right now to confirm or deny that one, but I think we've got a guest coming next week. We're going to have a lot of fun. Thank you again for tuning in. Feel free to tweet up about this and invite your friends, and I'll see you all next week.